Have you noticed how your grocery bill just keeps climbing higher and higher while the quality of the fresh food seems to be dropping? It is incredibly frustrating. Today, we are going to fix that problem completely by showing you how to build a modern victory garden capable of feeding your family all year round. I am going to give you the exact blueprint to transform your yard into a food-producing machine. But here is the crazy part. You absolutely do not need an agricultural degree, and you do not need a massive 100-acre farm to do this. Most people think true self-sufficiency is impossible for a regular suburban family, but that is completely wrong. By the end of this video, you will know the secret strategies to harvest fresh food even when there is snow on the ground. Tell me down in the comments, have you personally felt the sting of these crazy food prices lately? Let us get into the solution. To understand where we are going, we have to look back at history. During World War I and World War II, governments urged regular citizens to plant victory gardens. The global supply chains were broken, and people needed to step up to prevent massive food shortages. And it worked beautifully. Millions of families transformed their tiny urban lawns into lush, productive vegetable patches, supplying a massive percentage of the fresh produce consumed at the time. Fast forward to today, and we are facing a new kind of battle. We are fighting against inflation, unpredictable supply chains, and food packed with strange chemicals. The modern victory garden takes that powerful historical concept and upgrades it with highly efficient, modern organic techniques. It is about taking back your power and creating a secure, healthy food source right outside your back door. Let us start with the absolute foundation, which is the mathematics of feeding a family. Many people think you just throw some random seeds in the dirt, and suddenly you have a grocery store in your backyard. We need to completely bust that myth right now. If your goal is true food independence for 365 days, you have to plan like a military quartermaster. You need to calculate the actual caloric intake your family requires. Think about a standard family of 4. You cannot survive on lettuce and radishes alone. You need heavy hitters. You need dense calories. This means allocating a massive portion of your space to crops that actually fill your stomach and give you real energy. Imagine trying to power through a hard day of physical work on just a bowl of mixed greens. It is just not going to happen. So your modern victory garden must be designed around staple crops first. I am talking about potatoes, sweet potatoes, winter squash, and beans. These are the absolute engines of your garden. You need to sit down with a piece of paper and write out exactly what your family eats in a normal week. Then, multiply that by 52. That final number might shock you, but it is the only way to know how much space you actually need to dedicate to each specific crop. Do not waste precious real estate on things you only eat once a month. Focus on the daily staples first. Now, let us move on to the second crucial pillar, which is finding the perfect location and understanding the sunlight on your property. You might assume any patch of green grass will do just fine, but that is a dangerous trap. Let us debunk the myth that plants just need a little bit of light to thrive. To produce actual heavy fruits and vegetables, your modern victory garden needs a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of direct, unfiltered sunlight every single day. Less than that, and your tomatoes will look sad, and your peppers will simply refuse to grow. You need to map out your yard right now. Walk outside in the morning, at noon, and in the late afternoon. Watch exactly where the shadows fall. Pay close attention to large trees, fences, and your own house. A great trick is to create a sun map on a piece of paper. But here is the real secret. You can actually use microclimates to your advantage. For example, a south-facing brick wall will absorb heat all day and radiate it back at night. This gives you a tiny warm zone where you can grow heat-loving crops even when the season starts to cool down. Imagine harvesting fresh basil weeks after your neighbors have lost theirs to the frost. It is all about working with the specific environment of your own property, not fighting against it. Moving right along, let us talk about the absolute gold of your garden, which is the soil. There is a massive misconception that you need to buy endless bags of expensive synthetic fertilizers to get a huge harvest. Let us shatter that illusion completely today. The secret to a modern victory garden that produces year after year is living soil. You are not really feeding the plants. You are feeding the billions of microorganisms in the soil, and they naturally feed the plants. It is a beautiful, self-sustaining partnership. To do this, you need compost, and lots of it. Think of compost as a rich, dark sponge that holds water and nutrients perfectly. Every single apple core, coffee ground, and fallen leaf on your property should be turned into soil. Imagine creating a system where your kitchen waste directly powers your next meal. That is true sustainability. Start a compost pile immediately. If you have poor natural soil, like heavy clay or pure sand, strongly consider raised beds. Building raised beds allows you to control exactly what goes into your soil mix right from day one. You can use a mix of topsoil, compost, and aeration materials. It saves your back from breaking, and it warms up much faster in the early spring, giving you a massive head start on your growing season. Let us dive a little deeper into the great debate of raised beds versus in-ground planting. Many traditional gardeners will tell you that planting directly in the earth is the only authentic way to do it. But for a modern victory garden, we need maximum efficiency. Raised beds offer incredible advantages for feeding a family. First of all, the drainage is usually spectacular. You will never have to worry about your potato crop rotting in a flooded puddle after a heavy rainstorm. Second, you never step on the soil inside a raised bed. This means the soil stays loose and fluffy, never becoming compacted. Plant roots can dive deep and access nutrients much easier. Imagine trying to push a carrot through hard, compacted clay. It just comes out twisted and incredibly small. In a fluffy raised bed, those carrots grow straight, long, and perfectly crisp. Of course, building boxes out of wood or metal requires an initial investment of time and money. If you have a massive area, say a quarter of an acre or more, in-ground planting is definitely more cost-effective. The trick is to lay down thick layers of organic mulch. But for smaller, highly intensive urban or suburban spaces, raised beds are the ultimate way to pack a huge amount of food production into a very tight footprint. Next up is something that completely overwhelms beginners, and that is seed selection. When you look at a seed catalog, it feels like looking at a dictionary in a foreign language. Let us simplify this right now. There is a persistent myth that you should only ever buy hybrid seeds because they are completely disease-resistant. While hybrids have their place, the backbone of a self-sustaining victory garden must be heirloom seeds. Why? Because heirloom seeds have a magical property. You can save the seeds from your harvest this year, plant them next year, and they will grow into the exact same plant. Hybrids will not do that. They will revert to strange, unpredictable genetics. Imagine relying on a tomato plant to feed your family, but the seeds you saved grow into something totally inedible. That is a total disaster. Heirlooms give you complete independence from seed companies. You buy them once, and if you save them properly, you have an infinite supply forever. Look for open-pollinated heirloom varieties that have a proven history in your specific climate. A tomato that grows beautifully in the hot, humid south might struggle completely in the cool, damp north. Choose varieties that are known to be reliable, heavy producers, not just the ones that look fancy. Now we must discuss the absolute game changer for year-round harvesting, and it is called succession planting. Most people make the massive mistake of planting all their seeds on one sunny weekend in May. Then, in August, everything ripens at the exact same time. They have 80 pounds of zucchini for 2 weeks, and then absolutely nothing. That is the exact opposite of feeding your family all year. To fix this, you need to stagger your planting. Instead of planting a whole row of lettuce at once, plant just one small section. Then wait 2 weeks and plant another section. Wait 2 more weeks and plant a third. By the time the first section is finished, the second one is ready to harvest. You create a continuous rolling conveyor belt of fresh food. Think about how a grocery store works. They restock the shelves every single day. You need to treat your garden the exact same way. When your early spring radishes and spinach are finished, do not leave that soil empty. Immediately pull them out and plant a summer crop like bush beans or cucumbers in that exact same spot. Every square inch of your garden should be working for you from the moment the ground thaws until it freezes solid again. Empty soil is just wasted potential. Let us look to the sky for our next strategy, which is vertical gardening. It is a common myth that you need acres and acres of flat land to grow enough food for a family. That simply is not true anymore. If you run out of ground space, the only logical direction to go is up. By training your plants to grow vertically, you can literally double or triple your harvest in the exact same footprint. Vining crops are your best friends here. I am talking about indeterminate tomatoes, pole beans, cucumbers, and even small varieties of winter squash or melons. You can use cattle panels, bamboo teepees, or heavy-duty trellises. Imagine a simple wire archway connecting 2 raised beds. Now, imagine that archway completely covered in hanging green beans. Not only does it look incredibly beautiful, like a secret garden, but it makes harvesting ridiculously easy. You just walk under the arch and pick your dinner without ever bending over. Vertical gardening also greatly increases airflow around the leaves of your plants. This naturally prevents a massive amount of fungal diseases that usually destroy crops that are left sprawling on the damp ground. It is a massive win for space, a win for health, and a win for your back. Moving forward, let us unlock the ancient secret of companion planting. You might think plants just sit there silently, but they are actually constantly interacting with each other through their roots and the chemicals they release into the air. If you plant the right things next to each other, they become a powerful team. If you plant the wrong things, they will fight for resources and both will suffer. One of the most famous examples is the 3 sisters method used by Native Americans. You plant corn, climbing beans, and winter squash together. The tall corn provides a living trellis for the beans to climb. The beans pull nitrogen from the air and feed it into the soil to fertilize the heavy feeding corn. And the large, prickly leaves of the squash act as a living mulch, shading the soil to retain water and keeping raccoons away. It is pure genius. Another great example is planting strong-smelling herbs like basil or marigolds right next to your tomatoes. The intense smell confuses insect pests, making it much harder for them to find your precious tomato plants. By mixing flowers, herbs, and vegetables together, you create a complex, confusing environment for pests and a highly productive ecosystem for your family. Let us talk about the absolute lifeblood of your entire operation, which is water management. You cannot rely solely on the municipal water supply if you want a truly resilient modern victory garden. During a hot, dry summer, your water bill could absolutely skyrocket, wiping out all the money you saved by growing your own food. We need to be much smarter than that. First, you must install a rainwater harvesting system. Capturing the rain that falls on the roof of your house or garage is essentially collecting free, incredibly high-quality water. Plants love rainwater far more than treated city water. Set up large barrels or even a large tank connected to your gutters. But having water is only half the battle. How you deliver it is just as important. Standing there with a hose spraying the leaves is actually terrible for your plants. It wastes water through evaporation and encourages leaf diseases. The professional secret is drip irrigation. Laying simple, inexpensive drip lines across your soil delivers water slowly and directly to the roots where the plant actually needs it. Imagine giving a plant a slow, steady drink over an hour rather than dumping a bucket on its head. Drip irrigation saves a massive amount of water and effort. Now we enter the seasonal breakdown, starting with the hungry gap and the spring harvest. In the old days, early spring was the hardest time of year because the winter stores were almost gone, and the main summer crops were months away from being ready. Your modern victory garden needs to solve this problem fast. The secret here is planting cold, hardy, fast-growing greens. As soon as the soil can be worked, even if there is still a high risk of a light frost, you need to be planting seeds. We are talking about spinach, kale, radishes, arugula, and peas. These plants actually prefer the cool weather and will turn bitter if it gets too hot. Imagine the absolute joy of walking out into the crisp spring air and harvesting a massive bowl of fresh, vibrant greens after months of eating heavy, stored winter foods. Radishes are the absolute champions of speed. Some varieties go from seed to a crunchy, spicy snack in just 21 days. By focusing heavily on these rapid-fire early crops, you bridge the gap between winter and summer, ensuring your family has fresh vitamins and minerals when they need them the most. Do not wait for the perfect warm summer day to start gardening. Start the very moment the snow melts. Let us move into the glory days, the summer abundance. This is when the garden absolutely explodes with life, and you will likely have more food than you can possibly eat fresh. Summer is all about the sun-loving heavyweights. This is the time for your tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, zucchini, and cucumbers to shine. However, there is a dangerous trap here. The myth is that summer gardening is easy because everything grows so fast. The reality is that summer is a constant battle against weeds, pests, and drought. You have to stay incredibly vigilant. You need to be harvesting every single day. If you leave a zucchini on the vine for 2 extra days, it turns into an inedible giant club. If you do not pick your beans, the plant thinks its job is completely done and stops producing new ones. Picking encourages more production. Imagine walking out every evening with a massive basket and filling it to the brim with bright red tomatoes and crisp cucumbers. But here is the critical part for feeding your family year-round. You cannot just eat this stuff fresh. Summer is your factory production time. Every excess tomato must be turned into sauce. Every extra cucumber must become a pickle. Your mindset must shift to hoarding for the winter. As the long, hot days of summer begin to shorten, we hit a critical pivot point, the fall transition. Most amateur gardeners completely give up in late August. They see their tomato plants turning brown and think the season is totally over. That is a massive mistake. For a modern victory garden, fall is just a second spring. The soil is already beautifully warm, which means seeds will germinate incredibly fast. You need to do a massive cleanup. Rip out the exhausted, dying summer crops without any hesitation. Do not be sentimental. The moment a plant stops producing heavily, it is just taking up valuable space. Replace them immediately with cool weather crops. We are bringing back the spinach, lettuce, carrots, beets, and broccoli. These crops absolutely thrive as the weather cools down. In fact, many of them get significantly sweeter after a light frost. Imagine harvesting carrots in November that taste like absolute candy, because the cold weather caused the plant to convert its starches into natural sugars. By executing a strong fall planting strategy, you easily extend your fresh food supply well into November and December, long after your neighbors have locked up their gardening tools for the year. Let us take this to the absolute extreme level and talk about actual winter harvesting. Yes, you heard that right. It is entirely possible to harvest fresh food while there is snow on the ground, without building a massive, expensive, heated greenhouse. The secret is simple: unheated season extension. We are talking about cold frames and low tunnels. A cold frame is basically just a wooden box with a glass or clear plastic lid. It sits directly on the soil and acts as a miniature greenhouse. It captures the weak winter sun and traps the heat. You can build one out of old discarded windows and scrap wood for almost $0. A low tunnel is just PVC pipes bent over your garden bed and covered with a layer of special agricultural fabric. These simple structures can raise the temperature inside by 10 to 20 degrees compared to the outside air. Imagine brushing a layer of snow off a glass pane, opening the lid, and cutting fresh, vibrant spinach in the middle of January. It feels like absolute magic. You are not trying to grow tomatoes in winter. You are keeping extremely cold-tolerant crops like kale and mache alive and fresh, so you can snip them as needed. It is the ultimate flex of a year-round gardener. We need to pause right here and talk about survival. Let us discuss the heavy-calorie crops. If the grocery stores were completely shut down tomorrow, a garden full of lovely salads and spicy radishes would not keep your family alive for more than a few days. You need carbohydrates. You need the vital fuel that keeps the human engine running. A modern victory garden must prioritize these staples. The absolute king of backyard calories is the potato. Potatoes are incredibly space-efficient, extremely easy to grow, and they store beautifully for months in a cool, dark place. Next is corn, specifically dent corn or flint corn, which you dry and grind into cornmeal. You also need a massive amount of dry beans, like pinto or black beans. Beans are vital because they provide the crucial protein that is often missing from a garden diet. Imagine having a pantry lined with glass jars full of dried beans and large sacks of potatoes in your basement. That is real security. These crops take up a lot of space, so you must allocate at least 40 to 50% of your growing area to them if true year-round sustenance is your primary goal. Do not get distracted by exotic fancy vegetables until your baseline survival calories are totally locked in. Now let us explore the smartest investment you can possibly make, which are perennial food sources. Everything we have talked about so far requires planting new seeds every single year. That is a lot of continuous work. But what if you could plant something once and it feeds you for the next 20 years? That is the incredible magic of perennials. Every modern victory garden needs a dedicated zone for these long-term producers. We are talking about asparagus beds, rhubarb, and massive patches of strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries. And if you have the space, dwarf fruit trees are an absolute must. Imagine walking out your back door and picking fresh apples, pears, or cherries from trees you planted 5 years ago. They require an upfront investment of time and money, and they might take a few years to really start producing heavily. But once they are established, they are incredibly low maintenance compared to annual vegetables. A well-maintained asparagus bed can produce heavily for up to 30 years. It is like setting up a vegetable trust fund for your family. By blending these permanent crops with your yearly rotating beds, you build an incredibly resilient and diverse food system that gets easier to manage as the years go by. Let us address the enemy: pest management without using dangerous chemicals. The old way of gardening involved spraying everything with toxic poisons at the very first sign of a bug. That is terrible for the environment, terrible for the soil, and terrible for your family's health. The modern way is integrated pest management. You have to accept that you will never eliminate every single bug, and that is actually okay. The goal is balance. You need to attract beneficial insects to do the heavy fighting for you. Ladybugs, lacewings, and parasitic wasps are the tiny assassins of the garden world. Plant flowers like yarrow, dill, and sweet alyssum to invite them in. When you do face a major infestation, like aphids on your kale or cabbage worms on your broccoli, use physical barriers first. Floating row covers are incredibly effective at keeping butterflies from laying eggs on your plants. Imagine putting a tiny mosquito net over your precious crops. It is simple but brilliant. If things get really bad, use organic solutions like neem oil or a simple spray made from water and a few drops of dish soap. By working with nature instead of dropping chemical bombs on it, You create a tough, resilient ecosystem that defends itself. We have finally reached the most important part of year-round feeding, which is preserving the harvest. Growing the food is only half the battle. If you cannot make it last through the freezing winter, you have failed. The moment the harvest starts pouring in, your kitchen must transform into a processing facility. There are 3 main methods you must master. First is water bath canning. This is essential for high-acid foods like tomatoes, pickles, and jams. It seals the food in glass jars so it can sit on a shelf at room temperature for over a year. Second is freezing. This is fantastic for green beans, corn, and berries. It preserves the texture and nutrients incredibly well. Third is dehydrating. Removing all the moisture from herbs, hot peppers, and even making fruit leather is a fantastic way to store food in a very small amount of space. Imagine opening a jar of your own bright red, thick tomato sauce in the dead of January, while a massive blizzard is raging outside. The smell alone brings the heat of summer right back into your kitchen. It is an incredible feeling of wealth and security. You must dedicate time every single week during the summer to preserve what you grow, or all that hard work will rot. Let us step back in time to a brilliant technology that uses absolutely zero electricity, root cellars, and cold storage. If the power grid goes down, your chest freezer full of hard-earned vegetables is going to turn into a rotting nightmare in a matter of days. To be truly resilient, you need to store food exactly how our great-grandparents did. Many crops, if handled correctly, naturally want to stay fresh in a cold, damp, dark environment. Carrots, beets, turnips, and potatoes can literally last for 6 to 8 months if stored in layers of slightly damp sand or sawdust in a cool basement. Winter squash and pumpkins prefer a cool, dry area, like a spare bedroom or a dry closet. You do not necessarily need to dig a massive underground bunker to do this. You can create a makeshift cold room in an unheated corner of your basement, or even an attached garage, as long as it does not drop below freezing. Imagine having a massive wooden bin filled with sand, and anytime you want fresh carrots in February, you just go down and dig them out. They stay crisp, sweet, and perfectly preserved without a single drop of electricity. It is the ultimate backup plan for your family's food supply and true peace of mind. We are nearing the end, and it is time to talk about true, ultimate independence through seed saving. Buying seeds every single year keeps you completely tethered to the system. If supply chains break down or seeds become unavailable, your garden stops completely. A modern victory garden is a closed loop. As the season ends, you must intentionally let your absolute best, healthiest plants go to seed. Do not eat the biggest, most perfect tomato. Let it overripen on the vine, scoop out the seeds, ferment them slightly to remove the gel, and dry them on a paper plate. Let a few of your best bean pods dry until they are brown and rattling on the plant. Imagine holding a handful of dried seeds in the palm of your hand. You are literally holding next year's food supply. It is the ultimate form of wealth. Store these seeds in cool, dark, dry glass jars. Over several generations, an amazing thing happens. By continually saving seeds from the plants that did best in your specific soil and your specific climate, you actually create a custom, hyper-adapted super strain of that vegetable. It will grow better for you than any seed you could ever buy from a catalog. That is the true pinnacle of backyard self-sufficiency. Finally, let us talk about the reality of time management. The biggest myth of all is that you have to quit your job and become a full-time farmer to make this work. We are talking about a modern victory garden, designed specifically for busy, modern families. You do not have 8 hours a day to pull weeds. The secret to success is consistent, micro habits. It is far better to spend 15 minutes in the garden every single day than to ignore it all week and try to do 8 hours of back-breaking labor on a Saturday. Build the garden right into your daily routine. Take your morning coffee outside and spend 10 minutes plucking a few weeds or checking for pests. Spend 15 minutes in the evening harvesting what is ripe. Imagine how peaceful it is to decompress from a stressful workday by simply watering your plants and breathing the fresh air. By automating your watering with drip irrigation, using heavy mulch to stop weeds before they start, and doing a little bit every day, the garden becomes a joy, not a terrible chore. It becomes a family activity where the kids learn exactly where their food comes from. It takes dedication, but with smart planning, you can absolutely feed your family year-round. So here is the ultimate plot twist about building a modern victory garden. You start doing this because you want to save money on groceries and feed your family healthy food. But the real victory, the most surprising part of all of this, is the incredible mental freedom and peace of mind you gain. Knowing that no matter what happens in the world, no matter what happens to the supply chains or the economy, your family will eat. We have covered the entire blueprint today, from calculating your calorie needs and building living soil to mastering succession planting, preserving the harvest, and even growing food in the dead of winter. It is a journey, and you do not have to do it all perfectly in year one. Just start somewhere. Thank you so much for watching and learning with us today. If you found value in this video, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And make sure to subscribe so you do not miss any of our future guides on self-sufficiency and backyard homesteading. Now, I have a question for you to answer down in the comments. What is the very first crop you are going to plant in your own victory garden this year? Let us get a conversation going below.